Hey, true believers. Chris Matt coming at you with X Factor number 87. Now, this book, a lot of people would consider, I've said in past reviews that a lot of sitting and talking can be boring, especially if it doesn't lead anywhere or there's no substance to it or it's just exposition dumps. This is the opposite. This was a really good book. It was very intense, and we'll get into it here in a second. I do want to go over the credits, which is one of those times where they put the credits at the end, so that's the first thing we got to dive into. So let me find it. Here we go. So this book is called Examinations. It is Peter David, General Practice. Joe Quesada, Doctor of Gynecology. Oh my. Al Mingram, Doctor of Ophthalmology. So if I'm getting these wrong, feel free to make fun of me. I never took medical classes, so I do my best. Marie Yavins, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. Richard Starkings and Steve Durto, Doctors of Poldrichy. Oh my goodness, I am just flubbing these, but that's all right. Kelly Converse, Ears, Nose, and Throat. Bob Harris, Doctor of Urology. And Tom DeFactor, Doctor of Proctology. Oh, man. So, yeah, I miss when creators would do stuff like this and just kind of give, let you in on the gag that everyone was having fun. You don't see this everything nowadays. Everything always, for the most part, always feels so sterile. And that's what I always liked about Peter David, is he was able to poke at the fourth wall without it feeling overkill like modern-day Deadpool and Harley Quinn. So, anyway, this book takes place in the aftermath of the Executioner song, which was an awesome crossover event. It did X Factor, X-Force, X-Men, Uncanny X-Men. I think that was it. But anyway, what happens in that is Xavier contracts the legacy virus from Strife. And I'd like to eventually go over it one day, so I'm not going to spoil it. I know it's an older series, so you guys can go read it. But yeah, it was a very traumatic moment for all the X-Men because they were brought together under him. Even though there's different fractions, it all spun originally from Charles Xavier. And so something happens, and here's where we deal with the aftermath. And to kind of sum it up a little bit, Val Cooper decides that the team needs psychology, but you open the page and you're just like, what the heck is happening? Now, the print date on this book was February 1993, and I just love Peter David's humor because it works because you're just like, what's going on? Wait a minute. And you think it's LOL so random, but then it ties into the main focus of the book. So here you see Rain and Farrell, and it's the Rain and Stimpy. And just so for the people that probably didn't grow up in this generation, this was a joke at Ren and Stimpy. There was a cartoon on Nickelodeon back in the day. It was Ren and Stimpy. It was very crass, violent, and just overall hilarious and awesome. Stimpy was kind of the more slow one of the group, and then Ren was kind of this hot-tempered chihuahua. Stimpy was a cat. And whenever Stimpy would do some sort of antics, Ren would be like, "Oh, you idiot!" and hit him with a frying pan or something. And Ren always just kind of took it with a grain of salt. But anyway, that's the gag here. And I just, my goodness, I can never see Rain with that size of teeth. Oh, my God. So I don't want to get too much into this, but I like how, what does Rain say? I can't think of anything that could possibly spoil it, the day she's having. And so Rain, or she likes to call her Simpy in this point, puts on this record and they start going, mutant, mutant, angst, angst, mutant, mutant, angst, angst. Now the joke there is on Ren and Stimpy, Ren was feeling down, and Stimpy surprisingly makes a little helmet that forces Ren to be happy and kind of curb the anger. And there's a song, oh my God, I can't remember the name of the artist. For those of you that grew up in this generation, let me know down in the comments who was the author in that universe of Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy. But anyway, it goes Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy. And it keeps going. And then there's little things in the song like the little critters. They don't know that they're ugly. They don't know that they're ugly. That's very funny. He's like, I'll teach your grandmother to suck eggs. And then he goes, happy, happy, joy, joy. So you can kind of see the contrast in the song that makes it kind of disturbing. So in this sense, that's the same thing where they're going mutant, mutant, angst, angst, because mutants are hated. And then after all that, and you're thinking, oh God, please tell me this is not how the rest of the book is going to go. We see Rain. She goes, and then I woke up. And we find out it's a dream. So Val, as I said, has ordered X Factor to talk to a counselor. And he's asking, what kind of other dreams do you have? And she's like, I've had a dream where I dreamed up Rain's World, so play at Wayne's World. And then I fell asleep watching Rain Man, so it's a little dated, but it makes sense. And so the doctor kind of gives her a straight answer, because he's like, Guido warned me about you, that psychiatrists expect other people to do their jobs for them, so they don't have to give a straight answer. So this guy says, well, let me give you a straight answer. And we go on to say that, you want an authority, you respect authority, and they kind of start to talk about Alex and Xavier and the type of different loves, where he's like, do you think Xavier loves you? And he's like, yeah, because Rain sees him as a father, because he saved her from Father Craig back in New Mutants #1. So you can kind of see where she's matured since then. But you see that she hits one of the I can't remember what those things are called, but the clacking balls, as I always call them. And you can kind of start to see the tension, which is like clack, 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 just like it would be in a doctor's office. And he brings up the subject of Father Craig. And he's like, do you think Father Craig loved you? I didn't care to discuss him. But perhaps it might be better if I said I didn't want to talk about Reverend Bleeding Craig. He hated me. End of story. So you see that he kind of starts to scratch some really sore spots on this team, and you can see that all of them are not as well put together as you would assume. And then we get into Pietro, Quicksilver. And Pietro just kind of calls this doc on his crap. He's like, so you're the fellow that Val Cooper has hired for this odious task. He's like, why odious? It's idiotic government regulations. After a mission deemed traumatic enough for all team members, they are to attend counseling. Rubbish. And he really starts to kind of get under Pietro's skin, where Pietro says that he finds everybody irritable. And then what does he say? He says something to the effect of, well, what about yourself? And he's like, I don't think much of myself at all. He's like, so you're saying you feel inferior? He goes, not at all. I simply hold myself to an impossibly high standard. No one else comes even close. So you can kind of see the father of Eric Lensher kind of shining here. And he's like, you don't wear an X Factor uniform. He's like, they haven't asked. And so the doctor said, well, try to put this puzzle together. It's troubling me. So as with Rain, with the clacking balls, clack, clack. Here you just get because he's putting the pieces together. And he hits a sore spot with Quicksilver, which I don't want to give away. And even Pietro starts to go on talking about how the reason he sees people inferior and that he's above them. He's like, say you're at an A-team and someone's dragging their feet, or you go to Burger King and the cashier can't even get your order right. He's like, doesn't that get on your nerves? He goes, yeah, sometimes it irritates me. And he goes, now imagine, doctor, that everyone you work with, everywhere you go, FAP, your entire world is filled with people who can't work cash machines. I'd venture to say, doctor, that you too would suffer from PMS, which Val has deemed Pietro Maximoff syndrome. Get the picture? Not so puzzling. Now is it? And I've always enjoyed how Peter David can take stuff that's going on in the book, like just simple as putting a puzzle together, and relate it back to what the subject matter is. Now this is what I was saying, where you'd feel like this is boring, where people are getting sit and psychoanalyzed, but you start, and this is what's important, is it starts to flesh out the characters and make them more human. Now, I know I've said this many, many times the last few weeks, but if you go back on Amazon Prime, there's a show called Chris Claremont's X-Men. And Claremont talks about how, people come up to him and say how the characters that he created or the characters that he helped flesh out that were created by other people stick with them to this day. And how do they consider them actual people and not just pictures on a page? And it's because he gave them personality, he gave them depth. And when the Bryan Singer and Fox approached Claremont on how to make the X-Men work on film, he said something to the degree, I can't remember it now, but he said, it's not about the action. That's added. What it is it's a character-driven drama. Get people to care about the characters, and everything else will fall into place. And that's why in the movie, and just like with the books, you care about the relationship that Wolverine has with Rogue. You care about Scott and Jean. You care about Storm. Now, Fox didn't translate it as well, but they got the idea, and that's why the movies, for the most part, flourished during that time period. Same here. Now, I do want to make a comparison where there was a book, what was it, 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, called Heroes in Crisis. And there's supposed to be this little farmhouse where heroes and villains alike can go and talk to this machine about any type of PTSD, yada, yada, yada. And it was boring because the dialogue boxes were long and odious, as Pietro would say, and it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't lead up to anything. It was just a dull task. This, you start to see the characters on another level. Go back and research the Johari window, talking about the different selves that we show people on a daily basis. Lorna, strong, independent woman, absolute fan favorite, but she has issues. She has what's the word I'm looking for? Self-image issues. I don't want to go too much into it because I don't want to spoil the book. I want you guys to read this. But you start to see that this doctor is able to successfully start poking at certain issues that these characters have. And you feel for them. You can see why they're hurting, and you be like, Doc, make them better, because these are characters you care about. You start to care. You're drawn into their backstory. And it leads out because you start to see more about them. And then what really hits you is Guido's, because you really focus here. And I think this is the first time his backstory is revealed. I think, if I'm wrong, make fun of me down in the comments. But again, he's doing a yo-yo. And we always know that Guido's kind of the jokey, pokey guy. And he's talking about how he was in junior high, and he was always picked on. He was a smart guy. So the way he tried to fit in is he would do pranks. He said it only helped a little bit, and as you can see, he was still teased. So some things happen. He goes, the girl that he had a crush on, guy started wailing on him. He said that's when it happened. And that's the first time he sees his arm get big, how he's able to store telekinetic energy, but he has to immediately release it. He said it took a few more impacts over a couple of days to figure it all out. But he said by then the damage was done. Hence why he looked like going from looking like a normal boy to what you see here. Now, I'm going to spoil this because this really hit hard on Guido. Because, he's always the wisecracking guy. He always seems, cool, calm customer. Now, he says, by then the damage was done. At least I stopped before it got worse. But to this day, I'm in constant agony. Constant. Oh, I don't let on, of course. Because the guys, like I said, they'll feel sorry for me if they know I'm hurting. So I make with the jokes to cover it. The guys, the team, are the first real friends I've had. If they pitied me, it would kill me. So let's make sure this stays between you and me, Guido, I had no idea. Yeah, well, always leave them laughing. So you see that under this kind of cool, collected guy that he is, he's in constant pain because of what his mutation did to him. But he won't let on because he doesn't want to be pitied. He wants to be considered an equal. He wants to fit in. And the same thing happens here with Jamie, where, he's always kind of the joker. But he's talking about how when people notice me, it helps to make sure that I'm not alone. So that's all I really want to give on him. And then there's another moment with Alex, where he's talking about The doctor says, do you love your brother? Because he says, let's talk about Cyclops. And he hesitates. And he actually says, well, I mean, what's not to love? So you find out that even though Alex does love his brother, he's jealous. He feels like he's in his shadow, and he always has to be 2 steps ahead to be where Cyclops is. And you're just like, what? Alex, you're a natural born leader. We all know this, but he doesn't. And that's what makes this good, because even though he can do it, he can walk the walk and talk the talk, he doesn't feel it. So, man, some good stuff. Now, I don't want to give any more away on that, but the doctor actually kind of psychoanalyzes Val Cooper. He's like, Rain, typical teenager, had a crush on Alex once. It's gone. Lorna, very bright, very open. Pietro, snotty for no reason. I still think he's working a bit to be one of the group. He'll probably ask for an X uniform. So you see the opposites of what each segment means. Guido, party guy, totally hedonistic, just cares about himself. Jamie, a loner, really doesn't need a lot of people. What about Alex? Totally confident as a leader. He's really grown into it. Totally out of his brother's shadow. So I didn't want to give everything that's said. I know I kind of spoiled it a little bit, but I want you to go back and I want you to read in depth on what these people are feeling, and that you can see that these are actual people. You know, heroes aren't perfect. Everyone has flaws, and that's what makes us unique, and that's what makes a person is because they want to fight those things that make us feel imperfect. So again, this book, it's not, action, boom, blam, slash, no. It takes a moment to give you a breather from the event that we just did. And we get to delve into the backstory of some of these other mutants. And Peter David masterfully does an awesome job fleshing them out. The art team, because again, how many dynamic ways can you make sitting and talking interesting? The way they do it, the use of suspense in the way of the tension with like the yo-yo, the clack balls, etc., so forth. And then the shifts in mood on the facial expressions, the way Rain just lashes out, the different shadowing, like on Guido's face or Val's face. That's how you can start to see how things start to degrade as the Doctor gets closer and closer to finding out the true self. Again, I highly recommend, if you're interested in psychology, I dabble. I find it interesting, but not enough to go like full tilt into it. But the Johari window is a really interesting model. Really check it out. X Factor 87. Equally check this out. Get this book. It's not a big key issue, first appearance, one of 100 variant cover. Good story. At the end of the day, you can have a beautiful book, but if there's no depth to it, then it's just a polished turd, in my personal opinion. So this has depth, and it means something. And I have a funny feeling that down the road, this book is going to continue to touch people, because it really pokes at some nerves that you could see in everyday life. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Really helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little mutant bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. You can come to the channel, and we'd love to hear your feedback and talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down below. And again, if I hadn't said it, because I haven't had enough coffee, if you have enjoyed this book, please support your local comic shop and get a copy. And with that said, as I smack the camera, I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.